We're here in Washington, D.C. at the Hart Senate Office Building, and we're going to talk with Senator Chuck Grassley about renewable energy in Iowa.
I'm the father of the wind energy tax credit.
Yes.
1992.
Exactly.
But you know, when I did that, I didn't think it'd be the big thing it ever turned out to be. You know, we get 38% of our electricity from wind now.
Yeah.
And do you know that I've heard from Mid-America that maybe in 5 or 6 years, they will get about 90% of their electricity from wind.
Wow.
Back then, they were non-controversial, you know. But now you got all these new members of Congress, they don't know anything about the hysteria of importing all your oil from Saudi Arabia or other places, late 70s through the 80s and into the early 90s, that we were going to be totally dependent on Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. And who wants to be totally dependent on anybody for your energy, particularly for national defense, but also for social cohesion. If we had to start this stuff today, you'd never get it started.
Yeah. Well, that's what's great about Iowa in particular, is that it seems to be a very bipartisan issue. You have people on both sides who are very in favor of renewable energy. What do you think Iowa does right?
Well, I think number one, they passed a lot of state legislations that's been complementary to what we've done at the federal level. They've gone a little bit further in the sense of people that want to put up individual wind turbines. And there's not very many what you call individual wind turbines in Iowa, where one farmer or one entrepreneur will put up 1 or 2 facilities. If you could produce more than you use and you can sell it to the utility, then that's a help for an encouragement for you to put up a wind turbine.
Right.
See,
Right. I am curious, just because of the president's remarks at the Conservative Political Action Conference, when he said that when the wind stops blowing, well, that's the end of your electricity. And I'm wondering, as Iowa being a wind energy leader, how do you respond to that?
Well, I think he must know better, first of all. But he's been saying that ever since a speech probably 2 years ago in North Dakota. Mm-hmm. And he surely, obviously, doesn't know Chuck Grassley's the author of the wind energy tax credit, because I think he's got enough confidence in my leadership that he wouldn't be saying those things if he knew I was on the other side of this fence. Mm-hmm. So I just say it's kind of his way of being theatrical.
Is a reason that you've been so supportive of renewables in Iowa and federally, is that because they won't contribute to climate change the way that fossil fuels do?
Well, recently I've been getting questions from people about what we should be doing about greenhouse gases. Do I think there's global warming? Of course there's global warming. And of course we should be doing something about it. Mm. But what I always tell people, well, what sort of a plan do you have? Well, what have we been doing for 30 years? You know, because of all the alternative energy we have, and it's a growing industry. Mm-hmm. Maybe by 2030 we can't have 100%, but maybe by 2040 or 50 we can have 100% from alternative energy. You know, it used to be that Europe was ahead of us. Europe has plateaued now. We're setting the standard for the rest of the world. People say, well, you're a climate change denier. No, I'm not a climate change denier. I can read temperatures, and they've gone up 1.5 or 2 percentage points in the last 100 years. No, there's climate change going on, sure.
Cool. I'm sure you're sick of getting asked that, too.
Yeah.
The question that I like to ask people who are in positions of influence, do you have a book recommendation of any book that you think that someone should read?
Well, every day the Bible. Like me in a position of political decision making, I always say you got to know what our country's been about. So I always think anything that's history, particularly political history of our country, ought to be read today to know what to do in the future. Because if you don't know the background of your country, how are you going to advance these principles?
So the Constitution would be your answer?
Yeah.
Great. I like it. Thank you so much for talking to me,
You bet.
Being so candid, and also about your book recommendation.